Just a few weeks ago, the government confirmed its new transport bill will include rules to expand the legal use of e-scooters on our roads. But today, a pretty stark warning, really, on the dangers they could pose to pedestrians. The Department for Transport released figures suggesting the number of people injured after being hit by an e-scooter was nearly 4 times higher in 2021 than the year before. Currently, private e-scooters, we've taken you around these houses before, haven't we? Currently, private e-scooters are banned from being used on public roads, although there is a number of rental schemes in use across the UK. And of course, if you've got your own e-scooter, you can use it on private land. In other words, you can drive it up and down, ride it up and down your drive. But in theory, nowhere else. How many people do that? We're joined by a solicitor at Freeman & Co., the eponymous Nick Freeman, who specialises in traffic and speeding offences. Nick, welcome to you. A quadrupling. I'm surprised it's that low.
Yes, I suspect it's a lot higher, and we just haven't got the accurate statistics, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure that more than 1,000 people, they're suggesting about 1,000 people, just over 1,000 people were injured last year, either injured or fatally injured. I'm quite confident it's considerably more than that, but these are the statistics that are available. We're not surprised by them, and they're going to rise massively unless there is new legislation and it's enforced. And that's the problem. We don't exactly know what this legislation is going to be.
And in terms of those people who are being hit, I'm guessing disproportionately the visually impaired, the elderly?
Yep. It can be anybody, because look, you know, if you are impaired from a hearing perspective, I mean, no one hears an e-scooter because they're silent, they're stealth. So if they're on the pavement, and of course they shouldn't be, then they might knock you. They're going to probably approach you from behind. It might not necessarily be in connection with the commission of crime. There's no figures in relation to that, but you're not going to hear them. So we need specific. There is legislation in place, but it's redundant because we don't know who's on them at any stage. So what we do need, one of the first things we need, is identification plates. In the same way that we have for motor cars, registration plates. So at least there will be some means of identifying, tracking the owner. With that, there should be a degree of responsibility. But in my view, we also need to extend the legislation. The Road Traffic Act currently applies, as it does to cars, to e-scooters. But then the government, in June of 2020, removed the mandatory requirement to wear helmets. In my view, that needs to be reinstated as a mandatory requirement. And we know that private e-scooters are coming. They need to be limited in terms of speed. You know, at the moment, they can go up to 68 miles an hour. In my view, that speed needs to be cut drastically, and it needs to be enforced. We need specific legislation in terms of use on the pavements. I know it's outlawed, but how are we going to enforce it? You know, the police aren't there. They're busy doing other stuff. How is it going to be enforced? We're probably going to end up with cameras in the same way that we have on motorways, cameras on the pavements to deal with these things, because otherwise, at the moment, we've got something like 750,000 private e-scooters on a road. It's going to rise massively, and they're out of control. And without legislation, without enforcement, it's going to continue.
And, you know, I apologise to our viewers and I apologise to our listeners because you couldn't see the pictures. We were running pictures of rental scooters. Nick Freeman, you were talking about identification. And that's all fine. That's all hunky-dory. When they're rented, you put your credit card details in. The renters know precisely who you are. But that's on the legal side of things. Meanwhile, there's the Wild West, which is growing rapidly. And people are buying these scooters. They go to Halfords. They hand them over. Yep. I mean, this seems crazy. Yep. And yet, you know, clearly everybody's kind of in cahoots on this. We know when you sell privately a scooter, the chances of that scooter being used, as the law suggests it can be, in your garden, for heaven's sake, it ain't going to happen.
Or private estate. Yeah. I don't think many purchasers of e-scooters have private estates. You know, to go 68 miles an hour. You just go into any city, wherever you go, you see them. They're inevitably on the pavement. Yeah. They're illegal. The police need to be there. They need to be seizing them. They do cost money. And if the police seize them, if you have a police presence, excuse me, thank you very much, I'm having that. By the way, you're going to have 6 points on your licence. You're going to be fined. You're not going to see this again.
Nick, I've got to stop you because otherwise Christine Hamilton won't get a word and then we're both in trouble. Nick, thanks very much.
That would never do.
It would never do. Christine?
Honestly, now Nick will be blaming me. That's absurd. I don't mind if I never get a word in edgeways. That was so interesting. I don't think bicycles even have registration plates, do they? So they're not. let us know if they have. I've never seen a registration plate on a bicycle. So if they're not registered, how on earth are we going to get... I think they're an absolute menace. I fully understand the attraction of them. I can see why they appeal. But I think they're an absolute menace. And the very least we can do is control them and register who they are and who's got them. 68 miles an hour on something when you've got one leg in front of the other like that, you're deeply unstable. I mean, it's the most... like a child... At least a child on a scooter has got one foot on the ground pushing it along.
I think, to be fair, the rental ones are capped at 15 miles an hour. I think
good.
68 maybe at the very extreme end. Christine, for now, thanks very much indeed. Coming up...